Hey, we're back here on Radio Row in Los Angeles. And, yesterday I think we had one interview, and today it's just going to be rolling out, and it's going to keep getting busier and busier as the week goes on. And as you see, and hey, we're going to have people at the table here at some point this week too, but still, a little bit of virtual interviews as you see from Impact Wrestling, part of the Believe Podcast Network. He is Tom Hannifan, and he joins us now. Tom, how are you, man?
I'm great. I got to say, I saw your tweet, then went out promoting, the day and everything you're working on. And to be in the same tweet, the same list of guests as Joe Montana and The Miz, the first thing I said, I was like, one of these is not like the other. And it's me. And that's okay. And I appreciate that. And I was also like, kind of got half excited. I'm like, am I going to see Miz? I was like, oh, cool, man. I haven't seen Mike in a minute. That'd be great. And Montana is doing amazing stuff wherever he's on television. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Be wandering around. He will be here, and Seth Rollins is also going to be here tomorrow.
Very nice.
Too. So guys that used to work for people that see your face and maybe not recognize the name. Tom Hannifan, formerly Tom Phillips of WWE and Monday Night Raw, and now you are with Impact Wrestling. And I gotta say, I feel like we say this a lot, and I feel like every few years we say this about the wrestling industry. But if you are a fan of wrestling, it is a really, really good time to be a fan of wrestling with all of the options that are out there and all of the different ways that the guys can entertain you in every company.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's options. There's alternatives. There's so many different places for talent, especially in-ring talent, to land and hone their craft and find the right home for them. Find the right place that is best for their skill sets, the right people, the best place to learn, the best schedule. There's a lot of different things that go into it. So I love where the industry is at nowadays. There's just a ton of opportunity. Never before there have been this many opportunities to get on TV and learn how to be, a TV wrestler, a TV announcer, I guess, in my perspective. So I love it. And at the same time, people love to get on the internet and be upset about certain things in wrestling. And it's like, man, like if you just don't like it, like there's 80 other options right now. So it's like, go just find the flavor of ice cream that suits you. It's okay.
And that's you're on in St. Louis now, and last week the Royal Rumble was in St. Louis, and there were people that, for lack of better, they shit all over it. I was there with my 8-year-old son. He loved it. He had a great time at that and wanted to, okay, what other wrestling can we watch? What else is there? And stuff like that. And it's that there are different audiences. If you don't like something, you don't need to go on the internet and say that. You just go, you find what you like, or maybe, at some point, maybe it's just time to stop watching.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have their reasons for going to any sort of event. They want to, maybe you go to a Chiefs game because you hate Jackson Mahomes or something like that. I don't know why, but I always loved like any experience I had in wrestling where there were kids that were getting enjoyment out of it. That's the best thing in the world, man, because to them, they watch the show and these competitors in the ring are superheroes to them. They are larger than life. They do things that are just eye-popping and unbelievable, and nobody else on the planet can duplicate them. So I love to see a kid just enjoy it for what it is, because don't we all wish we could be that type of way? That was right. Like, I wish I could turn my brain off for a second and just enjoy this. It's like watching like Disney movies, and there's like subtle little jokes in there that they put in for the adults watching. It's like, just enjoy Moana. And every once in a while, The Rock's going to drop in a line that's going to get a 30, 40, 50-year-old to be like, I remember that. And it's like, it's okay. Just chill for a moment.
Yes, I going through like watching the Marvel movies with a kid, and going through all those, and there are those lines where you sit there and he's like, what was so funny about that? And it's like, don't
You'll find out when you're older. And then when they do, they're like, Dad was laughing at that,
So Impact Wrestling, I feel like it's amazing how long Impact Wrestling has been around. I don't think fans realize that Impact Wrestling has been around longer than WCW was around. When you think about it like that, and you think about the no pun intended, the impact that WCW had on the wrestling world, and now you think back and you look at the what Impact Wrestling and prior to that TNA Wrestling has brought to the wrestling world, it really is a brand that is going to be remembered forever.
It's revolutionary. I didn't watch the Royal Rumble, but I did see online the reaction to AJ Styles and Bobby Roode and the chance of TNA.
Yes.
There is respect for the roots of this company. And I've said it on other shows. Yeah, there were some rocky roads there as a viewer that you might have been turned off and things that were just a little bit too over the top and maybe the way the place was run. Fine, whatever. You have your opinion on that. As someone who got to see a lot of good wrestling over the years in WWE, I can tell you that watching Impact now and working on the shows for the better part of, a month and a half now, this is a good product. This is an underrated product. It has reminded me of my early days on NXT, what Triple H's vision was for NXT. It's this compilation of very young stars that are starting to put things together and adding tools to the toolbox. You've got veterans that and are household names that, it just all comes together so nicely. And there's that independent feel to it that I think NXT captured at Full Sail University, that AEW and WWE, it's the big stadium feel. It's just a very different flavor. So I think there's a place for it. And obviously it speaks to the way that the current management at Impact Wrestling does business, is that they're like, we want to continue to put on the best show possible, and we'll work with whomever wants to do that. I think that's a great way to approach things because you don't see that often in wrestling.
We've seen we've seen with your former company over the last 2 years the amount of cuts that have been made, and some of those people we haven't seen resurface in the world of wrestling, but others we have, and they have exploded even bigger. Your new digital champion, Matt Cardona, what
Yeah.
he has done with that, and we all saw it. We all saw it when he was Zack Ryder. He was the first wrestler to 1 million Twitter followers, I think it was, back in the day, and just the things that never seemed to that got over but never were pushed on TV, and now he's getting to do all of that, and you are seeing the creative mind that is Matt Cardona, not to mention the in-ring work that he's doing too. And it has been one of the most enjoyable things in wrestling to follow over the last year plus.
Oh, it's been great. I mean, it's just understanding what the audience knows or think they know about your character and then just turning it on its head. And, as someone who is in a similar boat, I'm even in these baby steps after WWE of like, okay, well, from the small things like, what am I going to wear on the air? How am I going to talk? Like, what are little things that I want to say within a show that are just different? And I have different options now because I'm in Impact Wrestling. So I commend anybody that has been able to take what on paper is a negative and turn it into a positive. It's not easy. I spent 6 months away from wrestling. I had questions of whether or not I was still into it, if I wanted to be in the world, if I felt I was any good at it. And it took a lot of support from family and friends for me to dive back into this world. And I'm so glad I did, because there's nothing else like it. It can be so rewarding. It can be very difficult. I understand that. But to those that have been able to take a negative and turn it into a positive and create a positive situation for themselves and their families, that's the best part.
What was it that that eventually clicked and got you to I guess take a second chance on yourself and get back into the industry?
It was the people. I had heard so many good things about what the locker room was like at Impact Wrestling, and not even just the talent, but just what Scott D'Amore is like. And then Josh Matthews is my executive producer. That man did my audition in WWE. So if you told me we'd cross paths then and then fast forward and he's in my ear giving me counts to stuff, I'd be like, you're crazy. But all the conversations I've had have been fantastic. Everybody backstage, whether it's producers or agents, the likes of Tommy Dreamer and D'Lo Brown, who I got to work with for one night, thanks to Honor No More. D'Lo and company have all been amazing to me. Gail Kim is fantastic. So I'm thrilled to be able to work with these people. And apparently Lance Storm is coming on and will be in New Orleans for No Surrender. So I was like, I love Lance Storm. So I'm very excited about this, man. It's just the people have made the difference.
Right. I saw that news the other day that he just that he was helping out with producers. He, whatever he's doing. It's like,
I don't know. I just, just show up and talk when they tell me to talk. But I saw that online. I love Lance. So I'm like, great. I can't wait to see him.
How do you go about preparing for a show? Because you have worked under so many different, I guess, minds, I guess would be a good way to say it, and people that have visions of how a show could go. So as an announcer, what is your prep work as you go into a show?
I've said it before. It's just execute. Is that no matter who it is in terms of it's a one person singular vision or a creative team, it doesn't matter. It's just what are we trying to get across? What is the story that we're trying to tell in this segment, this show, this program, this pay per view? So understanding that at first, and then just doing the little things in terms of homework here and there. Because I'll admit, I'm like I've only been calling this for a month and a half. I've done a lot of research, and I used to watch TNA Impact Wrestling back in the day. So I have a lot of them in my memory, but I'm still adding to that as I go. So I'm really looking forward to the point where it feels like more like a reflex, kind of like it did after a while with WWE. I'll get to that point. Working in a taped show situation, that's kind of what Impact Wrestling does on a regular basis. They'll do one live show a month, and those are relatively easy because you just do the thing and you go. There's no safety net. I love being on live TV. It's the tape shows where those can be a little complicated. You never know what's going to happen necessarily or what things are going to have to change along the way. And that's just where you've got to be prepared. And there's a lot more notes that go into it, but it's still fun at the end of the day. It's still wrestling.
You mentioned you really don't watch much WWE anymore. Do you watch any other companies? Are you watching the other products that are out there?
I over the years, because I was in a management position with WWE in terms of recruiting on-air announce talent, I would watch a variety of different promotions. I was watching Impact, obviously. I would watch Ring of Honor sporadically, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and then I would get tapes constantly from people who were like, "Oh, I'm looking for a job" or something like that. And you take a look at it. So right now, I'm watching a lot more old Ring of Honor stuff just to get up to speed on the current guys from Ring of Honor that are working in Impact Wrestling. Every once in a while, if there's a New Japan match that pops up, I got a lot of friends that are working over there right now, especially as they're infiltrating the United States. It's been really cool to see what they're doing. But yeah, like it's, when I was released from WWE and it was kind of like, you don't have to watch 6 weekly wrestling shows. That was a relief. So I haven't turned it on. And I take that back. The only thing I've watched was the last 10 minutes of the Raw where Big E won the WWE Championship. That was all I have turned on my TV and watched. So I'm okay with that because he's a dear friend.
I was gonna say when you saw when that happened, it was so cool to see all of the people from other companies that were so happy for a guy like that. It really speaks to just how well liked and how good of a guy he was. And you saw the stories that came out about him and what he did for Brody Lee's family
Yeah.
after when Brody passed away, and it just kind of talks. I mean, the guy he seems like an incredible human.
He is. It makes me emotional even to think about it because he and I got to be good friends when we were working in WWE together. And then, like, with the brand splits, sometimes you'd be on the same show or maybe only see each other at a pay per view. And I always give him a big hug. He and I are both college football junkies. So we're constantly texting about that stuff. But our friendship, even though we don't get to see each other very often, we support each other through everything. We talk about a lot of stuff. To see what he did for Brody's family, I can't put it into words. What he means, I think, to a lot of people, on and off camera in WWE can't be quantified. I think his work as a professional is second to none. What he did when he was given the WWE Championship in terms of all the promotional things, whether it was in the boxing world, Fox, you name it, he took the ball and he ran with it. And I think he's got enormous potential outside of the world of professional wrestling that people are just starting to scratch the surface with. So I desperately love Ettore Ewan. He's a good man. He's a fantastic wrestler, and he's a hell of an entertainer.
He is. He's supposed to be joining me virtually one day this week. I think I want to
Oh,
say 8 a.m. Thursday. I think
okay.
I have all of these that I need to confirm, but I believe he is joining on behalf, and we talk about how great of a guy he's on behalf of the Special Olympics. He's joining
Oh, great. That's awesome.
this week. So him and Drew McIntyre both
Drew
will
is
be
another
doing.
fantastic human being. That's a
Yeah,
that's a
so
good
both of
lineup
those.
you got there. Two big meaty men.
That's one when you see guys that size. Well, 2 years ago, Big Show Paul White was walking around in Miami, and I had him on, and that was one. And I'd love to hear if you have a story like this too. But I was like, when I booked him, my thought was all I wanted was a picture of my hand up against his hand. I just wanted to see just
Oh, yeah.
how large of a human. Because I mean, you figure, and you said you're a big college football guy. I mean, some of these offensive linemen these days are huge. Like Jonathan Ogden might be the largest person I've ever seen in my life, like 6'8", 330.
Right.
And then you see somebody the size of Big Show, and it's like, Jesus, like
And Big Show
how
was
does this
playing
happen?
college basketball at Wichita State at one point, which is mind blowing. No, when I'd watched Big Show for years, so when I can't remember the first time I met him necessarily, but when I first shook his hand, my hand disappeared. And
Right.
he's just a gigantic human being, and I know that's like, yeah, duh, of course. No, he's a really good guy. He's funny. He was always very helpful. Gave me a lot of good advice over the years, and obviously, he's doing great things in AEW now. So
Yeah.
Big Show's one of one. I
You're
believe he is one of the
yeah.
greatest big men in the history of pro wrestling.
You mentioned Big E. I mean, there's the guy in Impact we were talking about before we went on the air. A guy that I've done a lot with Glory Pro Wrestling in St. Louis, Jake something. Him and Big E. It's just like the muscles that they just have popping out of wherever they're coming from. It's like I don't know how that works.
It really depresses me when I work hard at Planet Fitness and then I bump into these guys. Yeah, like Big E. Big E has also transformed his frame from about 300 pounds to probably like 260, 250. He looks phenomenal. And then Jake something, who I've gotten to know over the last month and a half. I am blown away by what he is capable of. I think he's just scratching the surface of how good he can be. He is that build that you create in a video game. And I think to see him, especially very recently on Impact TV, he's mixed it up with the Bullet Club in the main event, to see him mix it up with the X Division guys like Chris Bay, who is fantastic, Ace Austin, who's fantastic, Mike Bailey, who just arrived. He is outstanding. There's so much talent, young talent, that's really developing and finding their niche. Jake thrown into that mix, it reminds you of the early days of TNA, where it was like, oh, here's the X Division and Samoa Joe's in the X Division. You're like, what? And it's like, oh yeah, watch this. There is no real definition or label on it. It's just who can out athlete the other athlete, sort of thing. It's really fantastic to watch.
Yeah, and he's he's a guy too that Jake something. I think every time he showed up at a show, he wanted you to compliment that he looked bigger. But I think now he's somehow
I'll tell him that when I see him in New Orleans. Huge.
I think though it looks like he's somewhat like slimmed down a bit, but it's still adding more muscle. It's from the recent. It seems like he is, like you were saying with Big E. It seems like he's kind of transforming that frame a bit too. Over to that. And it's, you don't get them, back in the day. I used to do a podcast with Road Warrior Animal, and the wrestlers of those days and how big and everything those were. Now you get a lot of the guys that aren't as big as Jake something. We mentioned Seth Rollins is going to be here tomorrow. You get those guys, the CrossFit guys, and the ones that are doing the dives and jumping through the ropes, the stuff that the guys in the 80s and 90s wouldn't dream of doing. And it's, really has just, the wrestling world has evolved, and the moves and the stuff they're doing is just insane these days.
Yeah, it's about storytelling at the end of the day, and it often doesn't matter if you're the biggest guy. Now, I think one of the biggest attractions of professional wrestling, regardless of promotion, is to see two guys who are 6'5", 270 pounds who can do some breathtaking stuff. You're not going to see that anywhere else in the world. It is, the theater of the mind, your imagination running wild, and like watching those things, as I'm sure you've been to plenty of events where that's happened. You're like, I can't believe this is happening right now. And it's what makes pro wrestling so special, is to see athletes of that caliber do what they do. But at the same time, guys like Bryan Danielson and AJ Styles have proven you don't need to be the biggest guy. You just need to understand how to connect with the audience.
I mean, all people need to do is just go to YouTube and type in, X Division and see just some of just go to an Ultimate X match and watch what goes into that. I mean, that isn't, we're not even talking about wrestling moves there. We're talking about having to climb a rope, one after, and that they don't teach you that when you're going to these academies.
No, they don't really tell you that. Well, that was so cool, because my first night out on Hard to Kill, the first match of the pay-per-view was the first ever Knockouts Ultimate X match. It was so special for everybody involved. But then at the same time, I remember talking to Chelsea Green afterward. I'm like, what was that like? Because those cables are all the way up. Like, I hate heights. So I was like, so how would that go? And she was like, it was not that great to be up there, but I just pushed myself through it, and you went and did it. And then like Jordan Grace is maybe the strongest person on the Impact Wrestling roster, and she's up there just making her way towards the X, and she's dominating that. And I was like, good God, like infinitely impressed by
Mhm.
anybody that will put their body on the line like that.
I think I saw. Didn't she just? She just won some weightlifting competition. I think this past
Oh, did she?
weekend, or
Oh, good
I
for
don't.
her.
Whatever she was posting about, whatever she was lifting, it was stupid. It really,
Stupid for us humanoids.
right.
Amazing for people like herself.
Right, and it's just incredible to see just how they're just immensely talented some of these people are. You mentioned you and Biggie, your love of college football. He's an Iowa Hawkeye, but
Mm.
you're yeah, there you got the Penn State stuff that you're doing with the podcast.
Yeah, it's been really great. I started that back in August. My co-host is former Penn State quarterback and NFL and XFL quarterback Matt McGloin. So he had
Hmm.
approached me, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is something I've always wanted to do." So it was a really cool transition for me leaving WWE, and then okay, what do I want to do now? And along the way, I've gotten to find out, what I'm trying to do as a broadcaster, performer. I think for a while I was like, I'm going to be a journalist and a reporter now. And I was like, you've never been that. Then that's okay. I have the degree on my wall, but it's just, that's not what I am. That's not what I did in WWE. So it's just kind of helped me find my footing as someone now post WWE. And then at the same time, I'm getting to hop on with legends that I have infinite respect for, like Paul Posluszny, Tom Hannifan, Michael Maudie from that iconic 2011-2012 team. So there's so many opportunities with it where I'm like, I just get to be a fan and be a fly on the wall for the conversation and drop in my 2 cents here and there. And hopefully I'm not too misinformed. So it's been fun.
That is awesome. He is Tom Hannifan, and he is with the Believe podcast network, doing the Pay Dirt, the host of
Pay
Pay
Dirt.
Dirt.
It's a Penn
Yep.
State football podcast. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Head to believe.com, BLEAV.com to learn more and tune in and like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you're a fan of Impact Wrestling, February 19th, streaming live on Impact Plus and Fight, it's the No Surrender event in New Orleans, Louisiana. So there you go. I did your plug for you.
Nice. Where? What venue are you guys at down in New Orleans?
I don't know off the top of my head. I just know it's in New Orleans.
I know I was
I will
down
be
there.
there with bells on for the Battle of the Bayou.
I remember being down there when WrestleMania was there a few years ago and going to a few shows around the area. So just curious to see where that might have been. But you
It's
know
in an
what? Hey,
email somewhere. I'll find it.
we all have the internet. We can all look it up and we can all figure that out. Or there are plenty of ways to just watch it on TV from our home and not have to go down to New Orleans and just watch you on commentary. Because hey, if they're down there, they can't listen to you.
That's true. It's up to you. The choice is entirely yours. We'll happy if you're watching either way. That's fine.
Tom, thank you so much, man. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Joe, thanks so much.
St. Louis Acura was the #1 Acura dealer in Missouri in 2021, and we were the 17th in the nation for Acura sales volume. We sell over 100 pre-owned vehicles monthly, and we service all of the makes and models that we sell. We are waiting for verification of our 30th Acura Precision Team Award, the only dealer in the nation with so many awards for customer satisfaction and dealership performance. We have 300 pre-owned vehicles in stock right now. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.